call to the honourable member for Dawson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. The latest national accounts show that compared to before the election, real disposable income has fallen by 7.8%. Productivity has fallen by 5.2%. Personal income taxes are 20% higher, and interest on mortgage repayments have almost tripled. Why are Australians paying the price for the Albanese Labor government's incompetence and mismanagement?
Call to the Treasurer.
Mr Speaker, some questions even the Shadow Treasurer won't ask, and he's thrown this one up the back for very good reason. If they want to ask us about productivity, Mr Speaker, perhaps they could mention that their decade in office was the weakest for productivity growth in the 60 years that these productivity growth data has been kept. If they want to ask about disposable incomes, Mr Speaker, perhaps they could mention in passing at least that when we came to office, real wages were falling by 3.4% and now they're growing again. Now real wages are growing again. And perhaps somebody could explain to the honourable member up the back, with this unfortunate timing in his question about the tax take, that the tax take went down again in the national accounts this quarter, and it went down in the quarter before as well, Mr Speaker. And so, Mr Speaker, they may have traded up when it came to the question, Mr Speaker, but the question is still incredibly, incredibly poor. And what it betrays is a total lack of understanding of the economy, Mr Speaker, a total lack of understanding. You've got the Shadow Treasurer wandering around saying there's $315 billion too much spending in the budget, when that number includes indexation of the age pension, indexation of veterans' pension. It includes our efforts to strengthen Medicare after a decade of attacking Medicare. And so, Mr Speaker, if they want to ask these questions about the economy, at least be upfront about the shameful record that you left behind when the member for Hume was the most embarrassing part of it, the most embarrassing government since Federation, and they delivered us inflation which is higher than now.
The Treasurer will pause. Order. The Minister for Veterans Affairs will cease interjecting immediately, and so will the member for Herbert, so I can hear from the member for Hume on a point of order.
Relevance, Mr Speaker. The Treasurer wants to talk about his budget, but all he wants to talk about is history.
Yeah. The order. The Minister for Climate Change and Energy will cease interjecting. We'll hear from the Leader of the House.
Mr Speaker, in terms of direct relevance, the question specifically says what are the alternatives. If the Shadow Treasurer believes he's not an alternative, that's a matter for him.
The member for McEwen will cease interjecting. Treasurer has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The same guy who can't get two questions in a row on National Accounts Day wants to talk about relevance, Mr Speaker. I was asked a moment ago about productivity. I pointed to the fact that we want productivity growth to be stronger, but the weakest 10 years was the time that they were in office. I was asked about living standards. I pointed out real wages are growing again. They were falling under those opposite. I'm asked by the Shadow Treasurer in his scripted intervention a moment ago to talk about the budget. I'd love to talk more about the budget in this place, Mr Speaker, because we have delivered a cumulative improvement of $215 billion from the big Liberal deficits that we were left, that we turned two of them into Labor surpluses, and next year's big Liberal deficit we turned into a smaller deficit, Mr Speaker. So our record is there for all to see when it comes to our improvements to the budget, the fact that inflation is almost half what we inherited, the fact that real wages are growing again, the fact that 2 out of the last 3 quarters we've seen productivity growth go up, but it will take longer than that to turn around the record that we were left with. Now, Mr Speaker, the Shadow Treasurer has the MPI shortly. 10 minutes looking at himself in the camera, like a budgie looking in the mirror, but without the insight.
The Treasurer's time has concluded.
Authorised by Andrew Wilcox, LNP Mackay.